In addition to being places for leisure and socialising, the settlements provided legionaries with everyday items. Many merchants and craftsmen had shops on Vicus de Vindolanda's main street. Taverns were a place to meet up with fellow soldiers, and the shopping district was where people bought their personal effects such as hygiene products, ointments, perfume or medicinal products, but also fabric, utensils and of course, food.
Nice jaw I've got here. So it's almost certainly sheep or goat. But
that's quite a large eye socket, but that's definitely horse rather than cow, which is great. Yeah. Ooh, this has really been smashed about, hasn't it? Very badly bashed. So.
What does that mean?
Well, it means it's been butchered.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been absolutely butchered. So what else have you got down there? Shoulder blade?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Roman ping pong bat. Okay. So that actually is probably a cow instead. So there you've got the marking in the shoulder blade where they punch through to hang the meat to let it be smoked. So this is smoked shoulder of beef with horse brains.
Oh,
lovely. So there we are.
It's another one.
So this is a tasty meal.
The large number of animal bones found in the fort of Vindolanda shows that legionaries did not strictly eat bread and grains.
All of these different butchered animals reminds us just the importance of meat and protein to the army.
But what did the legionaries' diet precisely consist of? How did they preserve and cook food in the camps? The excavation of the Lugdunum garrison can teach us a lot about the eating habits of Roman legionaries.
This kitchenware is interesting because it tells us that in this particular room, or at least in this building, meals have indeed been prepared. If the interpretation of a legionnaire's dwelling is confirmed for this building, then it sheds light on an aspect of the daily life of legionaries. They made their own food in each contubernum, or barrack. It had bunk beds, and there were 6 or 8 of them to each barrack, in which they had a fireplace to prepare their meals. They cooked all together every morning and evening.
To the trained eye of ceramic specialists, the smallest shard of pottery from the Lyon soil tells its own story.
This is a small cooking dish. It just came out of the ground and it's dirty, so it's a little difficult to interpret, but it has a flat bottom. Here you can see it has a small base. These were found in the kitchen. They were used to cook food and were placed on the embers. You can see here that it was used a lot because it's darker.
Depending on their shape, size, and the materials used, ceramic objects and pottery were used for transportation, storage, cooking, or serving.
The most emblematic objects are probably amphoras, which were used to transport foodstuffs. It is useful in learning about the relationship a site had with the rest of the Roman world, but also to understand how products were consumed. I've just washed the handle of a vinous amphora, a wine amphora from northern Spain. It's the paste, the colour and the appearance that indicate that it's a vinous amphora.
The thousands of fragments, which are very often scattered about, offer ceramic specialists a gigantic archaeological puzzle.
I washed this shard first, and I wondered what it was. It's not a cooking pot. It could be a jug with a handle, but I then wondered if it might be a kettle whose spouts were pinched by the potter. Then I found two shards that fit and confirmed that it was a kettle, since we have one part here, and then I washed this third fragment here. Kettles are of interest to us because they reveal that people knew the virtues of boiled water, mainly for consumption. But it also tells us that they sometimes drank hot water to water down wine, for example. We know this thanks to texts, and we've identified these objects to be kettles due to the calcareous deposit inside. We're in a region where water carries limestone. There are deposits in these objects.
After the excavation campaigns, Benjamin Clément and his scientific team take stock of what they found. The animal bones and ceramic objects found on site provide some initial information on the meals that were prepared. Archaeologists meticulously analyze every characteristic of the kitchen equipment.
There is a lot of mortar on this site. It looks like a lot of cooking took place here.
Like what, for example?
Sausages mainly.
All right.
So crushing offal and then mixing this offal with herbs perhaps and some spices.
That's a good-looking pot. What did they cook in these pots?
Well, probably dishes with sauce. Picture meat cut into small pieces in a sauce that was made in the mortar beforehand.
All right.
Usually with a blend of oil, wine, and perhaps some spices.
I see. It was put on the embers. That's how the dish was cooked.
That's right. There are a lot of indications of food consumption here. You can see the classic domestic triad in Lyon, which is beef, mutton and pork. But one specific feature here is that the animals are quite young. So that's rather interesting because it shows a somewhat luxurious mode of consumption. And what's great is that you can also see a lot of cutting and butchery marks on these. You can see the knife marks from cutting the meat, and here you can see that maybe it was sliced, possibly with a butcher's sheet. All of this tells us that cutting and preparation were common practices. And then, with all this poultry, specifically hens and chickens, gallinaceous birds, I'm reminded of the legend of the sacred chickens. If the chicken ate some grain before the battle, that was a good sign. The gods were with the legionaries. If the chickens didn't eat, then the legionaries would go back to their tents and refuse to fight. Some of these bones might also be from the sacred chickens who were revered by the legionaries. There are a lot of shells and oysters on this site. It's pretty impressive. They enjoyed eating this type of food, which is often found on sites in large quantities. This would be another indication that legionaries lived in the area.
The porous surface of the pottery and ceramic objects that legionaries used for cooking provides archaeologists with another field of investigation. Food remains can still be embedded in their lining 2,000 years later.
That's great. We almost have the whole object. This jar was used for storage. Once we wash it, we'll see if there's a painted inscription that says what type of product was carried in it. In any case, we'll have to analyze to provide clues on what type of product it was. This is to protect it from pollution. Mostly plastic. Plastic pollutes ceramic objects, and it's not good for analyzing them.
In Vic-le-Comte, a small village in the center of France, Nicolas Garnier receives many pottery and ceramic objects found on excavation sites. His biomolecular archaeology laboratory has become the benchmark for analyzing organic remains trapped in ancient crockery.
This vase came in with the sediment. In order to take off the bottom part of the lining inside, I have to take all of the sediment out and place it on a sheet of aluminium foil, in case other tests need to be done, such as pollen or seed analyses, for example. To avoid pollution and to sample properly, the archaeologists let me empty the vases. There are some small black things in there. I'll put them to one side in case it's burnt plant residue so they can identify it. We almost systematically find pitch from conifers in Roman ceramic objects. It was applied to the lining inside to waterproof them. We can also find beeswax or a blend of beeswax and sulfur. And now that we know how to extract and detect it, grapes or wine. Sometimes we come across slightly unusual materials. Very rarely I found cannabis mixed with wine, which was given as a ritual beverage or placed with the dead in their graves.
Nicolas dissolves the powder in a solvent to capture the molecules that need to be analyzed. He then filters the sample to only keep the concentrate. The liquid concentrate is then injected into a mass spectrograph, a machine that identifies the chemical signature of elements.
When you zoom in on the first peaks, like this one at 15.91 minutes, you see that it's benzoic acid, which you mainly find in a lot of different herbs. Here you've got fennel, so probably fruit. Here we have a peak of tartaric acid. It's quite intense, and that kind of intensity indicates grapes.
This small jar probably contained one of those wine-based flavoured drinks that legionaries enjoyed. They had it during their break or with a meal.
When they weren't in combat, legionnaires were often working on difficult tasks. So meals were an important time for soldiers to, of course, get their ration for working. The meal had both a social purpose for people to get together, but also to fill up stomachs so that the legionnaires could go back to their tasks with the calories needed to be efficient.